My, Osamu Nishi-sensei. You just can't miss, can you? What's up, guys? I'm here, and here we are to do a breakdown and discussion where I give you my thoughts on Descaras from Ichi the Witch in 15 minutes. Let's not waste more time. Let's start the timer right now. So, Descaras from Ichi the Witch was a character who, on design alone, kind of grabbed me by the throat and said, hey, you're probably going to like this one. And I was like, wait. I've been bamboozled. I've been slide-lined. I've been absolutely devastated before. Let me not put too much faith into it. But then, I just kept reading. And then I realized, Osamu Nishi-sensei is truly built like that. And what I mean by that is they take the common archetype of the mentor strongest character and have actually managed to implement them in the narrative to a point where I have no idea how they're going to be handled. But at the same time, I'm very excited to see how they're going to be handled. Now, you may be wondering, what on earth do I mean by that? And by that, I mean, think of the archetype that Descaras fits into. She is the strongest witch in the entire world. She has an endless bevy of abilities. She's currently the mentor, quote-unquote, to our main character. Think about what happens to these very experienced, very strong, very devious, and diabolical characters in, like, every other narrative ever. Usually they either don't make it to the end, which still is possible for Descaras, and or they can't really be implemented into the plot in a way that doesn't break it explicitly. I want you to think of a Gojo Satoru. I want you to think of a Kakashi Hatake. I want you to think of a Jiraiya. Does he have a last name? I actually don't remember. I don't think he does. Maybe he does, but I forget. But essentially, think of all these mentor-type characters who are extremely powerful, have a wide bevy of abilities, and ultimately exist to help bolster our main character. Are they really woven into the plot that much? They are usually, but typically what has to happen from like a stakes maintenance perspective is that they need to be dragged away from the plot for a little bit. But Osamu Nishi-sensei with Ichi the Witch has managed to keep Descaras integrated into the plot and make it make sense every single time she's either removed or tweaked or slightly adjusted from it, which I think is a very impressive feat of writing. Mainly because Descaras being the strongest and just flat out the strongest witch in the verse, as far as we know, unless something else happens crazy, the strongest witch in the verse would seemingly imply that she kind of can't exist without, completely undermining every single mission she's a part of. So initially, I honestly thought she was going to, show up and then kind of disappear, or let Ichi kind of disappear for a little bit. Think of how it works in Jujutsu Kaisen with Gojo Satoru, for example, where he's there, right? He showed up, he got our main character set up, and then he would disappear for extended swaths of time and let the main character do his own thing. I kind of thought that was going to be the case for Descaras. But then what Osamu Nishi-sensei did that allows Descaras to maintain their position in the narrative so well and have them evolve individually as a character despite their lack of need to evolve from a power perspective is the way that the power system of Ichi the Witch and the gaining of abilities and the gaining of experience and the gaining of progress works. Descaras is perfectly fit into a narrative where power doesn't solve everything. Obviously, in other battle shonen, or is Ichi the Witch even a battle shonen though? I'm actually raising my own eyebrow at the question of that. But essentially, in other shonen where combat is a major factor, typically you would assume that the stronger the character is, the more relevant they're going to be, and depending on where they stand in terms of their narrative role, they're going to be allowed or not allowed to do certain things. Do you know why Kakashi wasn't there at the end of part 1? Because if he was there, he would have low-diff Sasuke and then broken the entire plot. Do you want to know why Gojo had to be sealed in Jujutsu Kaisen? Because if he wasn't, he would break the entire plot. Think of any strong mentor-type character and how they are allowed to not to be there or be there in a certain way that doesn't allow them to assist the main character in the power struggle. That is the important thing that Descaras gets to entirely circumvent because of how the narrative is built. If it wasn't for the fact that you simply cannot brute force most magic trials, Descaras couldn't be involved in any of the arcs so far, in any of the acquisitions. But no, because it's a much more, not necessarily, I feel like gimmick is commonly associated with a negative term, so I don't want to say gimmick, but at the same time, since magic trials are so much more specific, so much more specialized, and only a few of them so far have been oh, you just have to box me to oblivion, and notably, it's those that need to be boxed to oblivion that Descaras isn't even really fighting, except for the most recent one. It allows for her to still be integrated into the narrative and allow her to reflect on the ongoing narrative rather than breaking it, right? When you think of characters of this archetype, they do have moments of reflection, but it's typically well after the points that they're happening. But I knew I was going to really appreciate Descaras as a character. Actually, it's even earlier than the point I'm referencing, but there are 2 points. The first point that comes to mind immediately is how she deals with the Bakugami situation back when we were recruiting Gokuraku. She takes one look at the bloodlusted, tweaking Gokuraku and is like, Ichi, I know you really love the guy. Unfort. He booms you, I get boomed too. I'm gonna remove you. The idea that in that moment, she had more power than literally everyone else there. She was stronger than Bakugami. She was stronger than Gokuraku. She's definitely stronger than Ichi. But she couldn't interfere without breaking the trial and possibly breaking everything, yet still was willing to do that in order to save her baby boy. That's that good stuff. I love when a character's strength cannot solve a problem, right? It's that, and not necessarily, I feel like the Saitama effect doesn't really work, because Saitama just also typically gets removed from the narrative for extended periods of time. But very specifically, it's like Descaras has a really, really, really big hammer, but ultimately there are no nails. It's either just screws or construction. The fact that Descaras can just destroy everything is typically irrelevant, and even when it becomes more relevant, it still isn't being able to be used in the way that she would want it to. The other instance where I knew I was going to love Descaras as a character takes place well before the Gokuraku incident. It's when she encounters the World Hater again. Now, of course, we do have context for why she feels so vehemently negative towards the World Hater, for good reason. She lost her little brother to him. But very specifically, I love that Descaras went out of her way to acquire more magics, more power, more strength, more ability, and she threw all that up against the World Hater. And it didn't mean anything. She swung that gargantuan hammer over and over and over and over again, and it didn't mean anything. Why? Because she couldn't get his trial out. And if she couldn't get his trial, whoop-de-doo. Doesn't matter. You can swing on him all you want. You cannot defeat him. You cannot slay him. And that is so good, because it puts Descaras in a position where she can only progress character-wise and not necessarily power-wise. That's the thing. Descaras sort of acts as like the power ceiling right now, so she's what everyone else is kind of catching up to. Ichi, our main character, is going to have to catch up to Descaras. Komugi, I'm still not sure what her long-term narrative role is. Like, that's a whole nother My Thoughts video in of itself. Like, I don't know. I really, like, presumably we'll get an arc eventually. But then Gokuraku, he's gonna have to catch up with Descaras. But at the same time, the reason this narrative works so well and why Descaras fits so well in the narrative is that they don't even have to really catch up to her. Except for maybe Ichi, because he has to fight the World Hater and somehow get his trial. But, like, notably, the narrative works in tandem with Descaras' position in it, rather than opposed to it, like is typically the case for the strongest tier characters. And I love that. And specifically, I'm talking a lot about like Descaras' narrative role, how she builds into it. I'm not necessarily talking too much about the character and why I like Descaras so much as a character. And admittedly, this still does fit into the whole archetype discussion, but I like that Descaras very specifically is driven by this very human desire, right? Of course, it is still somewhat a desire beyond herself, but one of my favorite instances that we've had with the character so far is right after the World Hater arc, when she's in a bar. She's knocking back what she gotta knock back in order to make all the bad thoughts go away. And Togeis comes in and is like, hey, I've known you for a long time. I understand why you're feeling a certain type of way. I get that. But this probably isn't the best for you. In case you need anything, including for me to take over tutelage of the boy who's probably reminding you of what you've lost, I'm here for you, Descaras. And Descaras acknowledges that. She appreciates that. She knocks back another shot and then proceeds to go and make the contract that binds her life to Ichi. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, despite the fact that Descaras is this technically perfect, divine, once in a generation, being able to do literally anything and everything when it comes to magic trials and acquiring strength and acquiring magic, she's still a human being. And thusly, she's going to make mistakes. She's going to be driven by emotion. She's still going to be a person that will have opinions, and those opinions will drastically affect the narrative and their impact. And that's that good stuff. That's that juicy stuff. That's that stuff that has me engaged with the character every single time they appear. The way that Descaras manages to have a chokehold over the narrative, yet have minimal control over it at all because of the whole gargantuan hammer, there are no nails here kind of scenario, is beautiful. And it's what makes the most current situation, at least at the time of recording, for Descaras so intriguing as well. The idea that Descaras is now put in a position where she can just tweak out, she can just wile out, right? She finally has a nail that she can swing her hammer at. But at the same time, it's disgusting to her. She hates the feeling that all this power that she's acquired is being used to tear through human bodies, rip through human flesh. It doesn't matter if they're just returned or regenerated. But in the end of the day, this is all for a trial that will rid the world of another monster. Descaras is human in the sense that she has emotions, feelings, and opinions, and is even driven by a very core human emotion. The desire to live up to a promise, and honestly, the desire for revenge against those who made her need to keep this promise in the first place. But at the same time, she is that all-powerful, I don't want to say deific. Deific sounds insane to say, but this like deific archetype. It's that balance between the extreme power of an individual and what that affords them in terms of their own narrative and in terms of their own world, yet the fact that they are still a person, right? Think of it as if there was, I don't know how to put it. Think of it as if there was a walking planet. That's kind of what Descaras is. She's this over-centralized nucleus of power within the Ichithewitch universe. That's why everyone was freaking out when she made the contract, because if Ichi ever does get boomed, all the magics, the literal abyssal amount of magics that Descaras has consumed in her, what seems to be a relatively short lifespan, I think Descaras is like 26, 27, they would all be freed immediately. Some of them seem to be chill. Some of them seem not to be. And there is that idea that Descaras holds so much weight in her, so much power, so much influence, so much strength, but it's still all characterized by a very human need for it, a very human want for it. And I think it's that balance that I like so much. And I think ultimately balance is the perfect word that I'd use to describe Descaras, because she has all this power. She has all this influence, she has all this control, but she's still tempered by human emotions, still tempered by human thought, still tempered by a very human existence. And it goes the same for her narrative role and position within it. She has all the power in the world. She's the strongest witch in the world so far. The only magic we've ever seen actually give her a run for her money is like the god one. And even then, she took less damage than it in their battle. But of course, you can definitely argue the world hitter was holding back as if that in the third, and you could argue the world hitter is even stronger. Whatever. All that being the case, she exists in a balanced role because her power cannot answer every question. And even in cases where her power can answer every question, it's still so situational that it can lead to character conflict, such as the case currently with Hitsugi, such as the case currently with Kizashi, or not currently, but was with Kizashi, right? Let's be real. Descaras probably could wipe Kizashi. Let's be completely honest. It would take a long time, but she could do it. However, she had people around her. She couldn't wile out. She couldn't swing the hammer freely. Ichi was grabbed by Kizashi first. So ultimately, Ichi putting himself in a volatile position is what allowed her power to be limited. And it's that constant dance, that balance. It's like I see Osamu Sensei walking on a tightrope with Descaras, where they're allowing the power to exist, reminding us that it exists on a consistent basis, yet still tempering us over and over and over again, reminding us, hey, she can do all this. Hey, she has all this. Hey, she is the goal to reach, especially for our main character and even possibly other characters around her. But at the end of the day, even if she is the perfect witch, quote unquote, she's not a perfect person. And that is what makes it so balanced. That's why I love Descaras so much as a character, because she has everything that she could need and even more in many ways, shapes, and forms. You would think that there would be nothing that we would be concerned about narratively. But Descaras is balanced. She's balanced for the fact that she's human. She's balanced for the fact that the world is balanced against her. She's balanced for the fact that the very power system that she operates in prevents her from being everything she could be in many other battle scenarios or any other shonens or stories that are heavily based around combat ability. And that's why I'm so excited for the future of Descaras. Do I want her to fall? No. please, Osamu Nishi-sensei, no. But at the same time, her narrative, unlike many others, isn't one that needs to necessarily be completed by the loss of her life. I feel like her story is a story of development, self-acceptance, self-reflection, and a heavy focus on the future, something she herself seems to have already acknowledged. And for that, I am excited. But, stop. And there we go. I am currently out of time. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the most balanced there is. That sounds silly. But the most balanced there is in the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos I come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You can support me for as low as $1 a month to get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions to the series I happen to review, ad-free variations of all my videos, early ad-free access to all my videos, your name at the end of literally every single video, and if you are a $3 member or higher, you get your name listed and read aloud at the end of every single video. On top of that, I do have a Ko-Fi link down below if you want to drop 5 beans for a short video or 25 beans for a long video or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, Brandon Payne, J2MA, Guillaume, Pura Ura, Enzo, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, Daboy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Magic, CCC, Rondo Furen, Dino, Hector Gonzalez, Tim Thomas, Kaving, Julian Perez, Akolade Babatunde, Union I, RXN, Nevis 97, Logan Guzman, Dead Meme, Karu Deer, Christian Carter, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntyre, Sino King, Hamza Idrisi, DNA, Edwin Igbinoba, Straw, Athenzi Shear, Antavius Mitchell, Plant Crone, Iso2404, Cray Panama, Super Flame 0, Zapro, Weary Exile, Karina Hernandez, Sheesh King, Window Life, Alex Kenny, Victor Jacobs, Todd, Dre, Axis XE, The Practical One, Aswin Hedi Prasetya, Jayan Day, Kaidai, Neville Pessiet, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Funny Dude, and Jagoda. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our line or tier patrons: A+A, Kevin Encarnacion, Sean, Dreadzone, Midnight Lord 21, and CJ. Then, I'd like to give a thank you to our Inc tier members: King RTX and Triple the Fourth Shrimp 06, along with Zom. I'd like to give another thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Joaquin Munoz and Joaquin Munoz.